the United States government thought it had uncovered the ultimate power play when it unleashed tariffs on China, expecting that Beijing would crumble under the economic pressure. Instead, the move has backfired on a grand scale. Rather than retreating or bending to American demands, China has taken the high road by turning every attack into an opportunity. One of the first and most biting countermeasures was imposing tariffs on American agricultural products, directly targeting the heart of the United States economy, its farms. American farmers, once thriving on China's insatiable appetite for their produce, now face a brutal new reality where their crops are met with reduced demand and plummeting prices. This isn't merely a trade statistic. It's a stark hit to the livelihoods of thousands of rural families who now see their futures clouded by uncertainty and economic distress. But the story goes far beyond just one sector. Every time the United States tried to weaponize tariffs against China, it inadvertently set off a chain reaction that has pushed Beijing further along the path to self-sufficiency. Instead of being cowed by the trade war tactics, China has doubled down on its own industrial strategies, most notably through initiatives like Made in China 2025. This plan, which was initially intended to transform the country into a high-tech, innovation-driven economy, has been supercharged by the pressure from US tariffs. Rather than curtailing Chinese progress, these tariffs have forced Beijing to invest even more heavily in domestic research and development, modernizing its infrastructure and securing its supply chains. The more the US tries to restrict Chinese imports and technology, the more China reinvents its economy, ensuring that it doesn't rely on foreign technology or markets as much as it once did. In addition to ramping up domestic production, China's retaliatory measures have extended into the global marketplace. Beijing has been busy forging new trade agreements and expanding its international influence. The Belt and Road Initiative has received a significant boost as China pours resources into infrastructure projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe. These investments not only open up new markets for Chinese products, but also create a network of political and economic alliances that further isolate the United States from its traditional sphere of influence. While Washington continues to insist on the primacy of free trade and its own version of global order, China's strategic partnerships are proving to be a far more nimble and effective alternative in today's interconnected world. Adding to the irony, the United States tariff strategy, intended to protect domestic industries, has instead turned into a double-edged sword. American companies that once benefited from a stable and predictable trade environment now find themselves navigating a maze of shifting tariffs and unpredictable policies. Manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers are all feeling the squeeze as the cost of doing business rises and consumer prices follow suit. This, in turn, creates a ripple effect throughout the economy, putting additional pressure on sectors that were never intended to be part of a trade conflict. In a twist of poetic justice, the very policies designed to shield American interests are now exposing them to a level of economic volatility that could have long-term consequences. Please drop a like and subscribe for more content. Recent economic analyses have taken this narrative even further. A growing chorus of economists is now predicting that the US could well be on the brink of a recession as soon as 2025. These experts point to the heavy-handed tariff approach championed by President Trump as a major catalyst for this potential downturn. The tariffs have not only disrupted global supply chains, but also weakened the fabric of international trade relations that the US once relied on for economic stability. With production costs on the rise, consumer spending taking a hit, and a manufacturing sector facing unprecedented challenges, the conditions are ripe for a significant slowdown in economic activity. The forecasts suggest that what began as a strategy to rebalance trade might instead be laying the groundwork for a full-blown recession, with widespread implications for employment, investment, and overall economic growth. Meanwhile, on the international stage, China's response continues to be characterized by a mix of tactical brilliance and strategic long-term vision. Beijing has been quick to reallocate its trade focus away from the US and towards emerging markets that are less concerned with Washington's trade policies. Countries in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and even parts of Europe are increasingly becoming the new focus of Chinese investment and trade. This shift not only diversifies China's economic base, but also minimizes the impact of any future US tariffs. The strategic realignment is a clear indication that China is no longer willing to play by the old rules of global trade. Instead, it is creating a new order where power is distributed among multiple centers of influence. Another critical point in this evolving saga is the impact on technological competition. As the US sought to contain China's tech ambitions by cutting off access to American technologies, Beijing used the opportunity to invest heavily in its own tech ecosystem. Companies like Huawei, ZTE, and a host of rising stars in the tech sector have emerged as direct competitors to American giants, leveraging domestic talent and resources to fill the void left by restricted access to US innovations. The tariffs, in effect, served as a wake-up call for China's tech industry, a call that has led to rapid advancements and a significant reduction in dependency on Western technology. Today, China is not only a major player in telecommunications, but is also rapidly advancing in areas like artificial intelligence, semiconductor production, and green energy technologies, challenging the long-held dominance of US tech companies. This technological surge is paralleled by China's push for financial independence. With increasing concerns about the stability of the global financial system and the long-term influence of the US dollar, Beijing has been quietly working to bolster its financial markets and international currency reserves. Initiatives to internationalize the renminbi and develop robust domestic capital markets have gained traction, further insulating China from external shocks. The United States' strategy of leveraging economic might through tariffs and sanctions now faces the challenge of an adversary that is steadily dismantling its vulnerabilities, piece by piece. The growing economic self-reliance of China isn't just a defensive measure. It's a proactive strategy to secure its position as a global superpower, independent of United States financial machinations. The cumulative effect of these moves is a dramatic shift in global power dynamics. The United States, once the undisputed leader of a globalized economy, now finds itself grappling with the unintended consequences of its own policies. The trade war, which was expected to be a swift contest of wills, has instead become a protracted struggle that exposes deep-seated vulnerabilities in American economic policy. As tariffs mount and supply chains fragment, US industries are being forced to adapt to a new reality, one where the rules of engagement are rapidly changing and the costs of protectionism are becoming painfully evident. The political narrative in Washington has shifted from one of confident assertiveness to cautious introspection, as policymakers struggle to reconcile short-term gains with long-term risks. Perhaps the most bitter pill for the US to swallow is the growing realization that its aggressive tariff policies have not isolated China. Rather, they have inadvertently fueled Beijing's rise on multiple fronts. The ripple effects of these policies are now evident in the burgeoning trade deficits, the erosion of traditional alliances, and the reorientation of global economic networks. American farmers, manufacturing workers, and even tech innovators are all feeling the pressure of a system that was designed to protect them, but has instead opened the door for China to seize the initiative. In the final analysis, the US strategy of using tariffs as a blunt instrument of economic warfare may have achieved some short-term political victories, but the long-term consequences could be far more damaging. The United States is now staring down the barrel of a potential recession, with economic forecasts for 2025 painting a bleak picture of stagnation, rising unemployment, and a loss of global competitiveness. In contrast, China's multifaceted response is a masterclass in strategic resilience. By turning adversity into advantage, Beijing has managed to not only withstand the US trade war, but to emerge from it with a strengthened domestic economy, a diversified network of trade partnerships, and a robust push towards technological and financial independence. While the United States remains mired in its protectionist policies, China is rapidly repositioning itself as the architect of a new global economic order, one that is less reliant on any single market and more adaptive to the complexities of modern geopolitics. The current state of affairs is a testament to the fact that economic warfare is never a one-sided battle. Every move, every tariff, every countermeasure ripples outwards, often with consequences that defy the original intentions. The US may have envisioned a swift triumph through a series of aggressive tariffs, but what it has instead triggered is a cascade of strategic responses that highlight the inherent risks of such an approach. The move towards a more insular and protectionist economy is not without its pitfalls, and the long-term impact could well be a re-evaluation of the role of tariffs in an interconnected global economy. In the end, the narrative is clear. The US strategy of imposing tariffs on China has done little to stifle Beijing's ambition. In fact, it has inadvertently empowered China to chart its own course. The retaliatory tariffs on American agricultural products, the accelerated drive towards self-sufficiency, the reorientation of global trade networks, and the bold push for technological and financial independence are all signs of a country that refuses to be bullied by outdated notions of economic might. As economists warn of a possible recession in 2025 and global markets adjust to a new reality, one thing remains certain. The US trade war with China is far from over, and its ramifications will be felt for years to come. What might have started as a simple dispute over trade deficits has now evolved into a complex geopolitical struggle, with both sides leveraging every tool at their disposal. The US may continue to bank on tariffs as its primary weapon, but the evidence suggests that this approach is not only ineffective, but potentially self-defeating. Beijing's strategy of turning each setback into a stepping stone for growth has transformed the trade war into a long-term contest of economic resilience, one where the stakes are nothing short of the future balance of global power. As the US faces mounting economic challenges and an increasingly uncertain future, China's calculated and multifaceted response serves as a stark reminder that in today's world, true strength lies not in coercion, but in the ability to adapt and evolve. Please drop a like and subscribe for more content.